The survey begins just before dawn. For 6 nights, an automatic camera has watched this ravine, sealed off by rock. So far, it has recorded only rain, wind, and the passing of a few birds. At 4:17, something enters the frame. First, a pale line between the grasses. Then loops, more and more of them, moving forward without ever settling into a stable silhouette. What descends toward the floor of the ravine is not quite crawling. Supports form beneath the body, carry its weight for a few seconds, then vanish back into its folds. The animal continues toward the wall. At the basalt face, it stops. The wall joins both sides of the ravine. No opening is visible. Yet the animal searches for neither a detour nor a grip. It simply remains there, almost still. Then the nearest folds come undone. A filament reaches the crack and disappears into the stone. The Cabinet of Impossible Life. File 005. The Thousandfold. Evidence. The first pieces in the file never show the animal whole. There are photographs taken on both sides of an obstacle, then crates found empty while their seals remain intact. At every site, the same pearly material remains in the finest gaps. In the clearest sequence, the passage can be seen. With each photograph, the body withdraws on the left and rebuilds on the right. The volume lost on one side returns on the other. No jump between frames, no second animal, only a mass passing through, length after length. The crate from Station 12 provides the first living fragment. It is found empty, its locks and wax unbroken. In the thread of a screw, the agents discover a pearly fiber, still able to contract, far too thin for the body that had been inside. The fragment is left in place, then stimulated. Behind the slab, the body contracts at once. Between them, nothing fills the open space. Only the fiber crosses the stone. What had been taken for a trace still belongs to the animal. To observe the entire operation, the cabinet reproduced the passage inside a glass enclosure. On one side, the body comes apart. Inside the slit, it is only a thread. On the other, that thread folds back on itself and regains volume. At no point is continuity broken. The experiment finally gives meaning to the file. The animal never crosses an obstacle as a block. Each portion unthreads, takes the same opening, then resumes its place on the other side. What remained was to understand how such an anatomy could stay alive. Specimen in the cabinet. The first living specimen is not kept in a cage. It lies on a 6-meter table held between 2 anchors. Its tension changes with temperature, humidity, and waking state, but the 2 attachment points never move. Give it a little slack, and its silhouette immediately depends on the support. On a flat surface, it spreads into broad loops. Between 2 rods, it makes load-bearing arches. Around a cylinder, it knots, hangs, and shifts its weight without any permanent limb appearing. Among the hundreds of visible folds, only 2 zones heal like true ends. A dye introduced at the first travels through the entire body before reaching the second. Every other tip is merely a loop turning back inward. The cross-section still gives the illusion of a cable made from hundreds of fibers. Follow each one, and it eventually rejoins the others out of view. The bundle assembles nothing. It is the same filament, folded, aligned, and folded again until it can carry its own weight. Unfolded without being stretched, a forearm-thick fragment already yields several hundred meters of primary filament. The full specimen probably hides kilometers. Its size, then, does not come from great thickness, but from length made compact by thousands of returns. A release of only a few centimeters is enough to produce a new structure. One loop rises, crosses a second, locks against it, and receives more circulation. What looked like slack becomes, in less than a minute, a living support. The specimen never keeps the same silhouette long enough for it to become a model. Serpent, network, mass, or many-legged animal, each description is accurate, but none lasts. The only stable plan is not a shape. It is a line. Anatomy. The primary filament is not simply an exposed nerve. A pearly sheath limits friction. Beneath it run contractile fibers, narrow conduits, and a distributed nervous network. Every centimeter can sense, tense, and transmit without containing a complete organ on its own. Several lengths of the same thread align inside a shared sheath to form a metafilament. These living cables then fold again to build the visible body. The thousandfold is built at two scales: a thread fine enough to pass through, and bundles strong enough to carry several kilograms. Its limbs obey the same principle. A loop drops toward the ground, stiffens under load, then rises back into the body. It can walk for an hour and disappear on the next step. It is not an extra tentacle, only a length of the animal put to work. One of the two ends can also fold into a terminal knot. Sensory fringes and glands develop there, then recede when the knot comes undone. A few hours later, the other end may take the same role. There is therefore no head to protect. Deeper in the body, larger crossings become exchange chambers. The contact surfaces thicken, vascularize, and move water, gases, or nutrients between distant parts of the thread. Geometry provides the frame, living tissue gives it function. At the exit from the crack, the first lengths fold back in the same order. They rebuild a load-bearing cable, then the knots needed for movement. Nothing has melted, nothing has separated. The body has unmade itself at the rear and rebuilt itself at the front, point by point, around a filament that remained continuous. Function, feeding, and costs. In open ground, this anatomy does not condemn the animal to crawling. It advances on 4 or 5 load-bearing loops, but none keeps its position for long. The rear support comes undone, its length passes through the trunk, then emerges farther ahead as the next support. A complete wound would be serious. Cutting the filament would create 2 new ends and break everything beyond them. Before rupture, the animal brings an intact loop closer, forms a bypass knot, and keeps exchanges running while the damage zone closes. To sense at a distance, several lengths are stretched between 2 supports like the strings of a lyre. The ground makes them vibrate. By comparing the delay between strands, the network locates a footstep, a trickle of water, or the regular digging of an animal underground. A few meters from the lyre, a burrow waits for its occupant. It belongs to an armored digger that enters each evening and seals the entrance with the plates of its back. No known predator can reach it then. The thousandfold has learned that route. It does not try to force the entrance. Before the digger returns, one end enters a side crack and reappears inside. A second takes another conduit. When the prey seals its refuge, the predator has already taken position around it. The operation lasts several hours. One loop appears at the back of the refuge, another behind the dorsal plate, a third in the air shaft. They seem separate, but all return to the same body, still outside. When the prey shifts position, the loops tighten together and the refuge closes around it. The burrow has not been broken open. It has been stitched, opening, by a predator already present on every side. The kill requires neither jaws nor venom. A loop closes behind the breathing plates. With every exhalation, the knot gains a few millimeters and prevents the ribcage from recovering its volume. The prey can still move. It can no longer fully inhale. Only after immobilization does a stomach appear. Several lengths form a sealed pouch. On their interfaces, glandular membranes, cilia, and dense circulation develop. Digestion happens inside this temporary organ. Then the pouch is emptied, untied, and returned to the rest of the body. Each function, however, immobilizes a portion of length. A large lyre improves perception but slows walking. A vast stomach makes narrow passage almost impossible. A repair consumes loops that could have carried the body. The animal can make many organs, never all at once. Habitat, cycle, and roots. Cracks are not its habitat. On open moorland, an adult can travel kilometers without meeting a single wall. It then adopts a long, light body carried by a few arches. The ability to come undone is not an obligation. It is an advantage available when the terrain closes. On rock, short loops favor grip. In grass, high arches reduce friction. On mud, the body widens into a lattice so it does not sink. None of this requires a new organ, only another distribution of the same length. In water, the supports vanish. The body opens its loops and undulates. On the bank, it rebuilds its arches. Its true territory, then, is not a network of cracks. It brings together hunting grounds, water points, surfaces where organs can be tensioned, and several resting shelters. Narrow passages sometimes connect these resources, but the animal also travels for long stretches in the open. In the young, a few loops are enough to form the body. It deploys only one support at a time and captures small prey. As it grows, the filament lengthens. The new length folds over the first loops. The adult can then maintain several supports, several temporary organs, and control far heavier animals. No stable group has been observed. At the boundary between two ranges, adults stop at a distance and place a few loops against the ground. Their vibrations answer one another, then one withdraws. Interlacing would be too dangerous. In a species made of knots, meeting another also means risking never coming undone. The cage problem. Before the current installation, the cabinet lost 3 specimens. The register mentions no breakage, no alarm, no accidental opening. Each time, the cell was found closed, the seals intact, and the inside perfectly empty. The first enclosure relied on the narrowness of its bars, the second on the integrity of a glass bell. The third multiplied materials and joints. None failed, yet by morning all were empty. 3 different devices built around the same certainty. that somewhere a body must meet a surface it cannot cross. But at the scale of the primary filament, a surface is never truly continuous. A screw thread becomes a ramp. A glass joint becomes a tunnel. Compact stone still offers connected pores. The more parts a cage accumulates, the more routes the animal can test. The reconstruction begins with an exploratory loop, almost invisible in the lower joint. It reaches the screw, follows its spiral, then reforms outside as a first support knot. The rest of the body takes the same route. The escape lasts 11 hours. Its slowness makes it no less complete. By morning, the container is still closed, and the animal is on the other side. The current device, therefore, abandons the idea of closing more finely. It acts on what every passage requires: slack. The two true ends are kept apart under constant tension. Without slack, no large loop can cross, lock, and become a working organ. Between the two anchors, the thousandfold can breathe, contract its tissues, and circulate its resources. But it can no longer make a knot. No support, no sensory tool, no body organized enough to cross anything. The only effective cage has no wall. It maintains a relation between two ends. This device contains the animal. It does not disarm it. As soon as one end is released, the first slack becomes a loop. The loop becomes a support, and the body begins choosing its shape again. The cabinet still classifies it among macroscopic organisms. That may already be a mistake. Faced with a wall, the thousandfold does not look for a passage its own size. It brings its body down to the size of the passage.